And once we get that confirmation, then we'll get started.
Sure.
All right, guys, if you guys hear us out there in crypto land, please let us know, right? Then we'll get started.
Sure. Do I go to Q&A to see people's comments?
You can, if you want. We'll keep it like to the end.
I don't know. I did. I was on the Ty Lopez podcast the other day, and I found it utterly distracting. The just stream of comments because he gets thousands of people across all the different platforms he uses. I was like, oh my god.
Yeah, it's weird because I don't know why, but people get us confused. I guess it's because we both have the first name Ty, and
that'll do it. And you're talking about crypto investing.
Yeah, the only difference is that we've been talking about it for like 4.5 years. I think he just came onto the scene a few weeks ago or a few months ago.
A few months, yeah. I've known him for a little bit. Newer to the scene, but definitely learning as much as he can quickly.
Yeah. If you guys can hear us out there, if you can put in the chat that you can hear us, that would be awesome.
Yeah, I can't even get the Q&A to load. Yeah. Oh well.
We'll get to it at the end anyway.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. I wish that on they would have like a button or a light or something on YouTube to kind of like confirm that the audio is working on the viewer side.
Yeah, that's
okay. All right, so I got confirmation that it works now. Okay.
Okay.
All right. All right, guys. This is Ty Zen. I'm broadcasting from Dallas, Texas today. One of the best cities to live in America. And we have here with us the awesome Jeremy Gardner. Awesome, spelled with A-U-S-U-M.
Daring and enterprising in Latin.
Yeah. So say hello, Jeremy, to everyone.
How's it going, guys?
All right. And you're broadcasting from another great city in America, San Francisco, correct?
Yes, the city by the bay.
Okay. And so I wanted to have you on for a while now because I originally heard about you back years ago when the Augur project got started, and that's how I ran across your name. And in this broadcast here, I want to pick your brain because I know you've been in the game for a long time. You look young, but you would be considered one of the grizzled veterans in the cryptocurrency investing space, So one of the things that I always like to share with my audience, right, because is could you talk a little bit about your background, what you do, where you're from, and what you were doing before you got into crypto? And the reason why is because a lot of people think that, like the people like you and I who've been in crypto for a long time, they think that, we've been in crypto forever, and they forget that we did other stuff besides crypto before we got into crypto.
Well, speak for yourself. I was in diapers before crypto. No, I mean, I did get into this space and really flung myself into it at 21. So I don't have too storied of a background, but I'm from a small farm town in western Massachusetts. And at a very young age, probably around 12 or 13, I decided I wanted to change the world. I wanted to make it a better place at scale. And growing up in this kind of rural location, it was a college town. I wasn't surrounded by entrepreneurs. I actually didn't know any millionaires. Tech felt incredibly far away from me. And so growing up, I thought the way that someone like me would change the world would be in politics. And so by my late teens, early 20s, I was really focused on a career in politics. By the summer of 2013, I was working for the governor of Massachusetts, and in later that fall, I helped run the campaign of the woman who's now Attorney General of Massachusetts. And through those experiences, I became deeply disillusioned with the world of politics. I found that it was not the world that I thought it was. I wasn't going to affect change in my 20s. I was going to spend my entire time raising money for politicians. And I figured I'd be better off going and making money myself and influencing them later, or getting involved in politics later on in my career. But it certainly didn't seem like a tenable option at 21. And I just happened to move in to dorm when I transferred to the University of Michigan in the winter of 2014 with the young Bitcoin entrepreneur who convinced me to look at the technology more seriously than I had in the past. I had first stumbled upon it in 2011, reading about the Silk Road, and bought it for the first time in the 2013 run-up, but selling it at $1,000, convinced it was a total bubble, which at the time it was. But it took me a little while to actually come to appreciate Bitcoin as a technology.
So, okay, so if you want me asking, how old are you now?
25, couple weeks away from 26.
Okay, so basically it's safe to say that you got your first Bitcoins at like around 21 years old?
Yep.
Okay. Hey.
First saw Bitcoin at $8 though, and I was like, what is this stupid thing?
Okay, so you started with that, and then what happened next after you got into crypto in 2013, right? And then in
2013, I bought Bitcoin, but then 2 months later I sold it, convinced it was only good for buying drugs off the internet and speculation, neither of which really interests me. But due to falling out of love with the world of politics, I'm kind of seeking some movement, something that I could get behind and put my life into. I was really fortunate to move in with this young Bitcoin entrepreneur who convinced me to learn about Bitcoin more seriously. And importantly, he convinced me to join the University of Michigan Bitcoin Club, because apparently that was a thing. And I was like, well, I don't have any friends here. I don't have anything better to do. So I started learning about Bitcoin, and I went and joined the Bitcoin Club at Michigan. And at the very first meetup, I actually went early with the head of the club because we had become friends. And a reporter from USA Today came, and she starts asking us about Bitcoin and about the club. And I don't have much to contribute because I'm so new. But partway through the interview, she mentions that there were Bitcoin clubs at MIT and Stanford. And the politician in me was activated at that point. I saw an organizing opportunity. And so I actually got on a call with the heads of the MIT and Stanford and Michigan clubs that very same night. And the heads of the club started talking about their respective successes and failures as organizations, offering to share resources and context. And then at the end of the call, not having contributed much so far, I suggest, why don't we create an organization out of this? And everyone was like, sure, go ahead. And about a month later, what is now known as the Blockchain Education Network was born. At the time, I really didn't think much of it. I thought maybe by the end of the semester, we would have maybe a dozen Bitcoin clubs that we could help get started around the United States. But right around the formation of the Blockchain Education Network, as it would come to be known, Mt. Gox imploded. And that brought Bitcoin to the world stage. To many, it spelled the demise of the technology, but to many young people, it sparked their interest. And so in a sense, Mt. Gox was a catalyst for what would become a thriving organization in the next 3 months. By the end of the semester, we had over 100 chapters in 20 plus countries on every habitable continent. And we had a movement underway, and I was getting asked to speak at conferences. And I had to really learn more and more about the technology. And that's when I really dove deep down the Bitcoin rabbit hole, because all of a sudden I was speaking about what I was calling Generation Blockchain, which is this generation of blockchain natives, people to whom blockchain technology makes more sense than centralized banking or big multinational banks or governments running money. And so I fell deep and hard into this space. And through the nonprofit, I met a brilliant 18-year-old computer scientist named Joey Krug, who I would start a hardware company with, and eventually go on a couple months later to drop out of school and found what would become known as Augur.
Okay, so you are no longer with the Augur project, is that correct?
That's correct. So after our ICO, I was totally burnt out. I've been flying around the world for almost a year, and there were 2 years left of coding left, and I'm not a coder. So it didn't seem like the best opportunity for me, and I was getting offered entrepreneur in residence positions at different venture capital firms in the Bay. I ended up joining Blockchain Capital, And I was supposed to be an EIR for what would be probably a 3 to 6 month stint. But in the first few months, I brought in several deals that the firm ended up investing in, and they ended up bringing me on effectively as an investing partner. I maintained the EIR position, but I got carried out
just so that the audience knows, right? What's the EIR?
in entrepreneur in residence. Excuse me.
Okay, so you basically brought several different ICOs, crowd sales, blockchain projects, businesses.
Yeah, well, so my role was to probably work on my next venture. You know, I had started 2 successful organizations, Augur and the Blockchain Education Network, but to also help them bring deals in. I had great deal flow, having spent the past year traveling, speaking at conferences, and also through my nonprofit. And so I ended up bringing several deals. I think they were all equity deals. We hadn't started doing ICOs yet. But deals that we ended up investing in, and so I ended up joining them full time, and that's where I was for the past 2 years. But because of my EIR position, I was able to found a new software startup called Sava. It's a legacy database security company. It actually has a couple pending government contracts right now, and I served as the founding editor of Distributed Magazine, which is a 108-page primer on blockchain technology.
Okay, awesome.
And then very recently, I left Blockchain Capital, wound down those other positions to go launch my own hybrid venture hedge fund.
Okay, and before we get into your hedge fund, right?
Sure.
You know, the blockchain education project that you started. I remember when I ran across that several years ago. It was similar. It reminded me of you guys and the guys from the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute.
Yeah,
right.
So some of those guys were involved early on at UT Austin.
Okay, so those guys, because I remember when I first started learning about cryptocurrencies, you know, back in 2012, right? I remember I was looking around. There was the Satoshi Nakamoto Institute, and then Charles Hoskinson also had another. There were several of these groups that were just trying to educate the public about Bitcoin and in general. You know?
Yeah, I remember one of the big moments was in February of 2014. We had recently founded the Blockchain Education Network, then known as the College Cryptocurrency Network, and the Bitcoin Foundation, which was still a behemoth in the industry at the time. They had reached out to us about a partnership, and that was super exciting. And Charles Hoskinson helped run their education committee. And it was actually Charles's Udemy series back in the day, the free Udemy series on Bitcoin, that had been my gateway to the technology. So I remember fanboying so much when I met like Charlie Schramm and Eric Voorhees for the first time. It was such a little cult back then.
Yeah, but now you're one of those guys. You're one of those guys that all the newcomers are fanboying about, you know, that they go crazy over whenever they see you at the conferences and stuff, you know, because you're a veteran.
It's crazy. I honestly, I can't go to blockchain events in San Francisco or really like mill around at conferences anymore, because just I get pitched and just like people just kind of really just throwing themselves at me, and it's just so overwhelming. I don't mind it when it's very well thought out, but you get pitched a lot of horrible ideas.
Yeah. We get when leonfood.com and I go to conferences, you know, we get the same way. We get approached by, you know, we don't mind, you know, meeting the subscribers and the followers and the viewers that, you know, we have this theme about, you know, crypto helps us, you know, make life-changing money or life-changing profits. So whenever we go to the conferences, we always got, you know, our viewers, you know, yelling out across the conference, life-changing profits, man, life-changing profits, you know, so we know it's one of our viewers. But then when that, you know, we're okay with that. You know, how people talk about, you know, some of the projects that we have talked about on our channel have changed our lives. We don't mind running into those people, but man, we get pitched so many projects every time we go to these conferences also, man. You know,
it can be really overwhelming.
Yeah, it is, man. And you know, like I try to be polite with some of these people and say hello and, you know, stuff like that. But man, some of these projects I hear, they're just like far out, man, you know.
Well,
but,
yeah. And the whole craze with utility tokens was bad in its own right, but because I pretty much helped create the first utility token with Augur, it was even more agonizing because I felt so guilty for introducing this world to this idea that I thought was so novel at the time, but just like engendered so much crap.
Yeah, so that's what I wanted to talk to you next after the the education project that you're working on. Can you share with the audience what Augur is? Just
Sure.
a big picture overview. You don't have to get into the technicals of it. What it is, what it's for, and what inspired you and Mr. Krug to create it.
Sure. So Augur is a decentralized prediction market platform. In plain English, it's an unstoppable online betting platform that predicts the future.
Yeah.
Effectively, what it is a stock market for anything. You can buy and sell shares in the future outcome of events.
Okay, so let's take an example that everyone knows. Let's talk about the Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump campaign.
Right.
We know what the outcome is, but let's see how Augur could have been used before we knew that Trump was president.
Sure. So will Donald Trump be elected president? And people can buy yes or no shares. Depending on how many shares are being bought of each side, you get a price. So let's say more people think Donald Trump will win the presidency. I don't know if that would have happened due to kind of the media narrative that we saw. But let's say more people did.
You mean the fake news?
Yeah, it may have been 55 cents for a yes share, saying Donald Trump will be elected, and correspondingly, it's 45 cents for a no share that Hillary Clinton will be elected. Okay. And what you can interpret from that price, at that 55 cents versus 45 cents, because it's out of $1, is the probability that the market assigns of an event occurring. So 55 cents for a yes share is a 55% probability that Donald Trump will be elected president, according to the crowd. And this harnesses a theory known as the wisdom of crowds, which, according to most social science, is actually one of the best ways humanity has of predicting the future. Unfortunately, stock markets, state casinos, and lotteries, they really enjoy the monopoly they have on legalized betting, and because prediction markets appear in many ways to be like betting, because you're saying whether or not something's going to happen and you're putting money on it. In many countries in the world, it's illegal, and even in the United States, many forms of prediction markets are illegal.
So,
and thus,
so when I first read about Augur, that's the first thing that came to my mind, is that the technical word for the project was a prediction market, right? But on the streets, I would just call it just a gambling platform.
It's much closer to a stock market than a gambling platform, because gambling assumes total chance. There's just random probabilities. In theory, in a prediction market, when you have perfect information, you should be right every single time. So it's much closer to a stock market than gambling, because you're actually betting on what is going to happen in the future. And in theory, if you have an oracle that gives you all the information that you need to make that sort of bet, you could be right every single time. There's no roll of the die or random draw of cards.
Yeah, so that was the other thing, that when I was looking at the Augur project back when you guys first started into it, that was one of the things that appeared to be like kind of, I don't know, vague. I wouldn't say questionable, but vague, is because in order for these prediction markets to work, right? So it has, you guys are building it on top of and when I say you guys, I mean, you and Joey were building this back then. The oracle, just so the audience know, is the oracle is the source that provides the answer to the prediction. So if we were sitting here, you predict that, let's just say you're from California and you predict that Hillary Clinton was going to win. I'm from Texas. I predict that, since I come from a Republican state, I predict Donald Trump is going to win, right? And so since the Augur project is a decentralized project, how is it that it's going to what is going to feed information into it that is accurate data, and that source of that data is known as an oracle in the prediction markets, right? How are you guys going to get that data into the blockchain?
Beautiful question. best question I've ever been asked about Augur in a very clear way. The fact of the matter is the idea of a decentralized oracle it is a problem that's plagued computer science since the advent of the World Wide Web. Historically, even if you have decentralized data points, an oracle solution has always had to come from one place, whether it's an API or a single individual. Firstly, blockchains really can't connect to the internet. Secondly, even if they could, a single source of truth in a decentralized prediction market platform would be a centralized point of failure. That oracle could be corrupted, kidnapped, blackmailed, etc. And thus, we wanted to create a decentralized oracle solution. And that's what led to the advent of the first ever utility or application token, known as REP, or reputation tokens. Augur is built on top of the Ethereum blockchain, and we soon realized that we would have to have our own native token to the application in order for there to be decentralized consensus or a decentralized oracle. And so what we did was we created this token that enables the holder of it to report on the outcome of events. And now reporting on the outcome of events, that's actually being updated in the new white paper that I need to go review. But the general gist is that people that own the Augur REP token, every 8 weeks, I think this has changed, report on the outcome of events. And for doing so, half of all the trading fees in the system are split amongst the reporters, thus incentivizing those who own the token to give consensus in the network. And it's a full loop ecosystem. You're not holding the token because you think it's going to appreciate in value, but you're holding the token because you actually want to help contribute to creating consensus in the network, and you get rewarded for maintaining the network, the platform.
So basically, the decentralized oracle system is basically made up of human beings, users of the Augur network.
Yes, and to use Augur, you can use any ERC20 token to make bets and predictions. But if you want to help create consensus, you own the token, and you get rewarded for helping create consensus in the network.
And how does someone verify that? How does the network verify that? Let's say that I contribute and I say, hey, you know what? Trump won. And then let's say that you were a malicious actor and you said, no, it was Hillary Clinton who won, right? So how does the network settle that?
Wisdom of crowds. So thousands of people from around the world are all reporting. So if you go against the crowd and what happened, because remember, this is history. This is something that already happened in the past. It's just turning history into our story. So thousands of people are reporting on that same event. So unless you were somehow able to coordinate with thousands of people around the world saying something that didn't happen did happen, you'd be very much inclined to say what everyone else is saying, because you'll lose some of your tokens if you're dishonest.
Yeah, okay, I see what you're saying. So you get punished for being dishonest and rewarded for being a contributor to the network.
Correct.
Okay.
In my view, Augur's token is hands down the best utility or application token there is. I didn't used to think that. I always thought that, but I thought I was being biased, especially as more and more utility tokens came. But then the more and more I deeply examined them and the crypto economics of how the systems worked, I realized that except for maybe 5 ERC20 tokens or so, almost all of them are total crap. So I'm convinced to this day that Augur's REP token is hands down the best utility token there is. That may not always be true, but for now, I'm fairly convinced of that.
My viewers, they always want to know if I own the tokens that I interview people about, and I just want to make it clear, I don't own any Augur tokens, right?
Yeah. And I'm totally speaking from my position here. I mean, I have not sold a single one of my founders' tokens, and I don't plan to. I mean, maybe when it launches, if it goes up a huge amount. I mean, Augur just surpassed $1 billion market cap, but I still haven't sold, even though I received my tokens when they were worth, the market cap was $5 million, because I'm such a big believer. So I am 100% speaking from my position. But you have to expect most people are doing that when they're talking about the token they like.
Yeah. So
except for Charlie Lee.
Except for Charlie Lee. And don't forget Fluffy Pony. You know, he's always telling people not to buy Monero. So those are, you know, the reason why I never got into Augur back when I first heard about it, and we made a few videos about it many years ago, was back then. This is a little crypto history here for the people that are listening. Back then, when you guys launched it, I think you guys raised like $5 million or something like that.
Yeah, we raised $5.5 million. It was I think the third largest ICO ever, 15th largest crowdfunding campaign ever.
Which is considered small today.
Yeah, I mean, it's considered chump change. Like yeah. I could literally do an ICO for like a nail clipping today and find some people to give $5 million for it. So, you know, it's
and
totally
this is something else too that people do not know about blockchain history. Back when you guys came out with the Augur project and the tokens, they did not have it available to trade. So there was these IOUs, these tokens that were considered like IOUs or something like that. And people were trading it on the exchange, you know, until the day that the actual Augur tokens were distributed. So back then, it was so like that whole IOU process was so fishy, you know, that I was like, you know what? Yeah. I'm not gonna risk my money into something like this, you know.
Right. Well, so what we did was we took what Ethereum did, and then I was working with Marco Santori at the time, although we couldn't really afford his full legal fees and over at Pillsbury. So my team developed the nickname for me, JG Esquire, and I would do all of our in-house legal research. So I learned everything about securities laws, all about prediction markets, gambling laws, and everything relevant to doing an ICO. And one of the things we really did was we kind of helped think about the beginning of what would become the SAFT agreement. You know, we didn't get there. We didn't have the funds. But that's what I always wanted to do. I wanted to do an ICO, lock up the funds, and then only make them available once the platform was live. But we just didn't have the means back then. There wasn't enough legal thinking around the technology at that time. It was just so early on. There's a lot I would do differently. But I think we definitely moved the industry in the right direction. And mind you, we killed the term ICO. I hated the term ICO. I thought it sounded like an IPO. I thought it would draw the ire of the SEC. I thought it was absolutely terrible. We called it a crowdfunding, crowd sale, token sale. We got totally rid of the term ICO, and it didn't come back for like a year and a half. And then and then it came back with a vengeance at the end of 2016. And it was super unfortunate. I mean, you know, I actually like the term now, and I've grudgingly come to accept it. But it was a term that we really tried to kill, and we did a good job of for a while.
Yeah, because I remember investing back into Ethereum during their ICO. Back then, it was just called a crowd sale. Right. And then the NXT was like the first blockchain 2.0 project that came out in January. In the end of 2013, that was also called a crowd sale. Ethereum was called a crowd sale. The Waves project was also called a crowd sale. And it wasn't until like, I think late 2015, 2016, when the term ICO started taking root back again.
Yeah, I mean, some people used it to refer to the Ethereum sale, but like Vitalik was smart, shut it down. Whenever people tried to refer to the Augur sale like that, I shut it down. It was just, you know, we were so much more scared. Entrepreneurs in this industry were so much more nervous about government regulation. I mean, we still hear about it all the time, but the fear that was struck into anyone developing a project, especially a decentralized project, not like a Delaware C Corp, but like a blockchain, or for us, a blockchain application, one that would have tokens and all these things that were just total ambiguous legal gray areas. It was absolutely frightening. We never wanted to do an ICO. We never wanted to create a token. It was we talked to economists, game theorists, prediction market experts. We tried to figure out a way to build Augur without doing a token. But there wasn't if we wanted to create this decentralized consensus or oracle system. And so it's funny now to see how brazenly people talk about creating ICOs, and based off of all the time I spent learning about securities laws and what it means to issue a security, and really all the case precedent that we have from the Supreme Court and such. People come and pitch me their ICOs. I'm like, you're issuing a security. This is against the law. Like very clearly, you know, there are ambiguities obviously in everything we do. Nobody's done something that's entirely above the board, except maybe what we did with blockchain capital and then science, where we actually called what we were issuing as security. But otherwise, it's next to impossible to be completely compliant because this is a total new legal landscape that we're working with.
Yeah.
You just have to do your best to be compliant. But it was scary, and we had lots of arguments back in the day.
It's still scary today, bro. It's still scary today because, you know, we have an in-house lawyer that reviews everything we do. We have a securities attorney that used to be a former federal prosecutor for the government, you know, review everything that we do. So we want to make sure that, you know, we are doing everything correct, you know, the way that it's supposed to be and compliant with U.S. laws.
Right. Well, and as regulators have taken a greater interest in this technology and these tokens and these ICOs, we actually, I mean, I have had the privilege of getting to know a lot of them at the CFTC, SEC, and Congress. And as a result, DOJ. And as a result, you get to know what they're looking for. And what these guys, for the most part, I mean, until there are very clear guidelines or laws written, what these guys are looking for are the rule breakers, the guys that are trying to like scam mom and pop, like grandma calling her up, offering 10,000% returns. Those are the guys that they're really going after, or the real brazen violations of the law. If you're doing your best to be legally compliant and do something that makes the world better, that is a technological innovation, we have not yet seen regulators in the United States, at least, try to shut down a project like that. It's only when the law has really clearly been broken that they've taken enforcement action. And you have to give them respect for that, because they've been very nuanced in their enforcement thus far.
Okay, so you did that. You started the Augur project, one of the, you know, early ICOs or crowd sales back when you called it, right? And so what happened there that prompted you to leave the project and move on to your next blockchain project?
There were a few things. I mean, like I said, there were 2 years of coding left. I'm not a coder. So that was first and foremost. I was really burnt out. There's a funny story. They'll probably get annoyed if I tell, but I'll tell it anyway. And so we did the first ICO that accepted Ether, right? Because we were built on top of Ethereum. In fact, we had to delay our ICO to wait for the Ethereum network to launch. We did the ICO maybe a week after Ethereum went live. Most of the money that we contributed, that was contributed, was in Bitcoin. We received about $4.5 million in Bitcoin, but we received about $1 million in Ether, which, if I remember correctly, was like 1.2 million Ether, because it was 80 or 90 cents back then.
Yeah.
And we all agreed that we needed a hedge against the volatility of crypto. We had seen what happened with the Ethereum Foundation when they held all of their Bitcoin. We didn't want the same thing to happen. So we all agreed that we should sell all of our Bitcoin. We were built on top of Ethereum, but I argued to the team that, you know, we're built on top of Ethereum. If Augur is successful, Ethereum will be successful, at least somewhat. It will be worth more than 90 cents. Yeah. And so I argued, let's hold on to our Ether, because I think as long as Augur is successful, you know, Ether will be worth more in the future than it is now. And it turned into a pretty bitter argument that I ended up losing. So we ended up selling 1.2 million Ether at like 85 cents.
Hey, I'm about to faint over here when you tell me that, man. You guys didn't save like 10% or 20% or nothing?
And the guys that we OTC'd it with, they weren't able to liquidate the position that we sold them. And thus they actually ended up holding it through the like rally to $20, and apparently every guy in the office ended up buying Lambos. It's fine. It is what it is. You know, you live and you learn. We all have those sorts of investment mistakes. But that was part of the reason why I left Augur. But it was an appropriate time for me to leave, especially with the opportunities going to venture capital. That was very exciting to me. In that period between finding Bitcoin and leaving politics, I had actually decided that my life dream job was a venture capitalist. But then I realized
you are in San Francisco, which is Silicon Valley, which is the heart of you know, of venture capital in America, and I would say in the world.
Right, but I was living in my small farm town in Western Massachusetts when I decided that it was my dream job, and I learned that the only way to get into venture capital was either through like investment banking or through entrepreneurship. And I was like, oh, I don't know anything about either of these. And I had spent more time in Zuccotti Park at Occupy Wall Street protesting the banks and never learning about banking. So it seemed like a far-fetched fantasy. Less than like 2 years prior, then all of a sudden I had this opportunity to work in VC, and it was incredibly exciting.
So you moved out to San Francisco?
Yeah, well, so we moved out to San Francisco shortly after founding the project, and so I had been in San Francisco for almost a year and a half at the point when I went and joined Blockchain Capital.
Okay, so then when you left the Augur project, so you went over to Blockchain Capital.
That's right.
Worked there for a few years, helped them out, brought in some really good deal flow, good projects to them.
We did the first security token ICO, which was huge.
Which one was that?
BCAP, which was it was a tokenized limited partner interest in a venture capital fund.
Okay. So you spent some time at Blockchain Capital, and then what prompted you to leave that and move on to your next blockchain project?
So I had founded the magazine, founded the software company, but I was really comfortable. Like I didn't have to work that much. Obviously we've gone through this incredible crypto rally in the past 2 years, if you will. And thus I was like, I'm doing great. Like I could do this.
So when you say you were doing great from your crypto investments, from your token investments?
Yeah, because I had ended up
combination of the two.
I had ended up investing a lot in Ether and Bitcoin, XRP. I got then in the summer of 2016, I received all my Augur tokens. So overnight, over the course of a year, I had made more money than I probably ever had expected to make in my life. I never got into Bitcoin or blockchain technology for the money. It was always kind of a side pursuit. I just believed in the tech, so I invested in it. But it ended up really rewarding me in a way that I could have never really imagined. And so I was quite comfortable, but I was, as the ICO market started to pick up, which was something I was really comfortable with, at the VC firm, we weren't moving as quickly as I liked. I met an amazing venture capitalist, 29-year-old Brazilian woman, Barbara Manuzzi, who had started her own biotech fund in San Francisco. And she started imploring me to consider starting my own fund. I had made a bunch of really great angel investments that had performed fairly spectacularly. I was really close with Olaf Carlson Wee over at Polychain Capital. I was one of his first GPs and LPs, and was an investor in the GP and an early investor in the limited partnership as well. And she started convincing me to go launch my own fund. I was skeptical. Things were going well at Blockchain Capital. But then she really started to catch the blockchain bug, and she's like, fine, I'll do a fund with you. And she's much more operational thinking, which is just great, because I like making the investments, meeting with the teams, working with them, developing the investment theses, but like back office and legal and investor relations and raising money, it's less of my interest. And so she came in with a potential anchor investor. And then I started thinking about it much more seriously. Talked to the guys at Blockchain Capital, said I was thinking about starting my own fund, and they very actively encouraged me to do so. They were like, this is a great time to do it. And, I took that as the green light. And, the past 2 years were immensely rewarding. I started a magazine, started a software company, did a bunch of awesome investments. But there was nothing I was committing myself to fully, and there's nothing like being fully committed to something like Augur. There's bringing something like that to fruition or to the ICO. There's something immensely rewarding about that. And I thought maybe doing my own fund would be the right thing. And so I started thinking about it, developing a thesis, and I'm actually taking capital commitments in the next few weeks. So I'm very excited. It will be a really rewarding experience. It's just about keeping a pulse on the industry.
So you left Blockchain Capital, and now you're starting your own. Would it be safe to say it's a crypto hedge fund, or is it a VC fund?
It's a hybrid. I
Okay.
think structurally, after speaking to lawyers recently, we'll be structured like a hedge fund, but we're still going to be making venture investments, equity-based investments. We're going to have a lockup period. We're not going to be trading. It's going to be long only. It's really about investing in technologies. I wouldn't call it a social impact fund, but investing in technologies that make the world a better place. And I think that is actually most blockchain technology, but it excludes some, and it just really it's focusing on finding technologies that are going to scale to affect the lives of billions of people, and because that's something that's truly important to me. As I
So
said, from the age of 12, I've been just totally dedicated to changing the world at scale.
so the name of this fund that you just started is called Awesome Ventures. Is that correct?
Yeah, so it's
Is
this
that based
great.
on the awesome?
Well, so it sounds like the word awesome, but what's great about the word is that in Latin it means daring or enterprising. AU is a chemical symbol for gold. I see Bitcoin as digital gold, and in ancient Sabine it means rising dawn. And I really do see blockchain technology as a sort of rising dawn. It's this emerging technology that has the potential to disrupt everything. So it's an incredibly fitting name, and it's just this word that it has actually not been copyrighted yet. So it's great. I love it. Some people find it too playful, but I'm a very playful guy. So I
Yeah,
don't
yeah. So on our team, we started out just similar in similar times that you did, and we, you came from a political background, before you got into the blockchain space. We came from a trading background before we got into the crypto space. So obviously, we've done, we're in a similar shoes like you are, where money is no longer an issue in our lives, and probably, in our lives or our kids' lives, So when you get to this stage, I'm curious, like you talk about, making a change in the world. Well, why do you suppose that what drives you, or what is your driving factor to pursue those things? Because most people, when they look at people like yourself or like us, like myself and other guys on our team, where we've hit it, we've done well for ourselves financially with crypto, people can't understand why I still broadcast like I do 4.5 years ago. They don't understand why you still continue to go work on your projects the way you do, when neither one of us have to do it, right? We're doing it.
well, I think I do actually. It's funny because, as I said, I never did this for the money, and thus, however much money, if I was broke, I would still be doing the exact same thing because what drives me, it's not money. What drives me is the ability to affect change in the world, to make it a better place. It's one of those innate strange desires. I mean, some people may characterize it as a messiah complex. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's
No.
like I found this revolutionary technology and I want to bring it forward to the world, and that's probably more important to me than anything. If there's a point at which I find something that moves me more, that I think can make the world better, if I find a way to create more change, then I'll do that. But money, it comes down to intrinsic motivations, and my intrinsic motivation has never been money. I'm very fortunate in that, like, I grew up in a middle class household, only child. Dad was a college professor. My mom makes multimedia for museums, very middle class. But I was just never taught to value money highly. It was just I was taught to do what I love, and that's really important. And my parents, I don't think, being the very anti-capitalistic people that they are, I don't think they'd ever imagine I would do crypto. But it's the same thing. I'm driven by my love of what I do, and if I just went on vacation, I did a digital detox in Bangkok and Bali for 2 weeks, and at the end of the trip, I was in Bali, which is one of the most beautiful, amazing places on the planet. Had a great villa. I was getting 90-minute massages for $14. Like, I mean, it was amazing. But at the end of the trip, I was eager to get back into it. I wanted to go build this fund. I wanted to start investing in startups. I wanted to go make this technology real for the world. I didn't want to rest anymore. I didn't want to vacation anymore. And that I think it's a personality trait. Some of us are driven by more than just a basic level of security and comfort. They're more existential desires.
Yeah, it's interesting that you mentioned that, because on our team, it's the same way. Like we could have, just folded up our YouTube channel that we started. We were the one early channels to talk about, trading and investing in crypto. And we could have easily closed this up a year ago and just walk away and not do anything. But instead, we feel like, hey, we have a voice that we can help other people. When we started going to the conferences and people were telling us how our channel affected them and changed their financial life, it's like, I told Leon, my business partner, is like, why stop now? You know what I'm saying? I mean, this doesn't cost us anything. It doesn't, a little bit of time each week, but it changes people's lives, man, And it's not every day that you get to be in a position to where you can actually do something that your work or your effort actually changes other people's lives. And we're not just talking about like one person, right? We're talking about like when I get emails from people talking about how they were able to buy a new car or pay for their college or buy a new home or retire. And what the ones that I really enjoy the most is the ones where people talk about how they were able to quit their, unshackle the corporate handcuffs, you know what I'm saying? And be able to do this full time,
Yeah, I mean, it's absolutely remarkable. I mean, yesterday, this has never happened before. 4 times yesterday, I got messages from random strangers on the internet saying a talk I had given or a podcast I had done had changed their lives. 4 different people, and I was just like, "This is insane." I mean, either it just inspiring them with new passion, or some guy had gotten out of medical debt, and I was like, "Oh my God!" Like I don't want that sort of responsibility. And I always say nothing I say should be interpreted as investment advice, but it has been truly remarkable to see how either the technologies I've created, the magazine I made, the nonprofit I founded, you have the ability to affect the lives of tens of thousands of people, and that has always been my desire in life. And so there's no amount of money. I mean, I could be a billionaire tomorrow, and it would literally change not one thing about what I'm doing today, because I don't know. I guess I don't like cars. I don't like private jets or like big houses. Like I still live in my crypto castle, pay less than $1,000 a month for rent. Like it's just like what I value is just kind of experiencing the world and making it better. And I call me crazy, but that's just kind of what I live for. It's been immensely rewarding in the past 2 years as this technology has become so much more real.
Yeah.
Alarming as I see the naivete and arrogance of many of the new investors coming. These guys that are just coming and trading, not really knowing what they're doing, betting the farm, mortgaging their house, and that's frightening, and that I find that deeply disconcerting. But for people that are actually educating themselves about this technology and getting excited about the underlying innovation, when I see that happen, that really is the most immensely rewarding feeling.
Hey, so speaking of making things better and rewarding feeling, I'm going to put you on the spot here, okay, for the new people into crypto, okay? Because you've got a lot of experience in crypto investing and trading and things like that, and especially in the investing space, right? Let's just say that we stripped every token that you have right now and put you at 0 and you have less than $10,000 to start with, right? What would be your approach coming into the crypto space, knowing what you know now? If we took everything away from you, all the money, all the tokens, everything you have, and all you were left with was, let's say, $10,000, less than $10,000. But where would you start? How would you get started?
I would probably get my rent down, cost of living down as low as possible. If we're talking about nothing, I get my costs of living, everything down as low as possible. Have I been stripped of my education, or do I still know everything I know? No.
You know everything that you know right now. And how would you get on your feet and take advantage of this blockchain boom? We know that there's a few years in this, 3 to 5 years maybe. How would you, take the little bit of money that you have and really take advantage of this boom?
Sure. So, I mean, there's a side of me that says I would go and start a new company, but I wouldn't. I mean, you have to have a financial safety net for that. I would probably go join a startup that I loved what they were doing. that was in this space, and I would start working with them. I would get any sort of consulting work that I could. $10,000, if that's all I had to my name, and I needed to find housing and food and shelter and all that stuff, like the last thing I'm doing is investing. But once I get a little bit of money, which is what I'm sure you're aiming towards, like investing is something you should do. Once you have your very basic necessities, I saw this great quote the other day, the difference in the mentality between poor and rich people, and this obviously isn't always true, but the difference between them is that poor people spend and then invest what they have left over, and rich people invest what they have and then spend what they have left over. So I would get what the basic necessities I need, but then I would start making investments. I would probably go. I mean, this market's so frothy and scary. It would be a very scary time to start investing. But I would put in whatever money I have saved that I could afford to lose, because you should never invest more than that. But whatever I could afford to lose, I would start putting in small percentages into Bitcoin Cash, Ethereum, not XRP right now. For a long time I said XRP, but it's up 500x right now, so probably not that. I would 100% put money into Rep, and then there are a handful of other projects. Filecoin, when it becomes available, probably 0x. I think it's one of the most undervalued tokens in the entire crypto ecosystem. But I would have to be very shrewd and never invest more than I could afford to lose, because the last thing I would ever want is have to rely on other people. I always want to be able to support myself. So it's being very mindful. And I would probably get into a few ICOs, but I probably wouldn't be as brazen as I am with ICOs, where it can seem like a good idea. They pass my basic due diligence, but I probably wouldn't bet it like my life funded project. I would have to be much more shrewd in my investments.
Okay. And then if I had to start all over and I had like 2, 3, 4 friends and I was single, didn't have a wife and 2 kids like I do now, I would grab like 3 or 4 of my friends, and do what you're doing right now, living at the crypto castle. And I would just reduce all my expenses, right? I remember a time when I had 3 roommates and we shared everything. And the expenses were like, I think like $375 or $425 per guy in the house. And there was 4 guys in the house. And we had a pretty good sized house. We had like a 4-bedroom house in North Austin, Texas, right? And I would just hunker down. And I would just say, hey, man, come to an agreement that everything in the house, we have like, we'll stay for 12 months while we come up, and get on our feet in the crypto space. That's what I would be doing.
And that's what we did with Augur. I mean, we literally lived on $1,000 a month salary. We all lived together in the house. We all split food. We lived on a bare. I mean, living on $1,000 a month in San Francisco is not easy. It's just the cost of living here is high, and we really just like barely kept it together long enough. So it was an extreme undertaking. So I know what it's like. I mean, I put every penny I had into Augur to see it make it to its ICO, because we couldn't get investors back then. Back then, there was no such thing as a pre-sale. Nobody understood what a utility token was. Nobody believed in Ethereum. So, I've been through that. And so I could totally, I mean, for a long time, I think still deep down inside me, there's this kind of morbid desire to kind of lose all my money and just have to go build it all up again. Because I'm 25, I could afford to do that. But even now, having made, tens of millions, probably, I still have a very cheap cost of living. Like I don't spend just recklessly. I mean, my rent, as I said, is probably less than $1,000 a month. I get my food at Costco for the most part. I got a guy, I give him up $3 in Bitcoin and he gives me $15 ride credits for Uber. I managed to charm my way into a buddy pass from a flight attendant. Like my life expenses are not that high, and like I live with a bunch of people, so like my utilities are fairly low. Like I think it's never bad to be shrewd and have humility when it comes to your money, because it's something that I appreciate. I know what it's like to be broke. When I was in my teenage years, there was a point where I became homeless for a little bit. So like I've really walked the span of things, and you've got to appreciate what you have, and not really just indulge in total excess. Of course, I've got my vices, but I try to in my
I bet
daily
you got
life
a
I try
quality
to
vape.
limit.
I bet you got a quality vape now.
Well, you cut off. What was that?
No, I said I bet you got a high quality vape, the one that you're holding in your hand.
I actually bought this a few days ago. Yeah, it's a hookah. But yeah, it's nice.
Damn, that's like luxury right there. That's like a Ferrari hookah, man.
This is apparently like the Ferrari of hookahs, but it cost me like $125. I have not made any big purchases. Most of the money I spend goes into investing. Actually, my next meeting just showed up, and it's a new speakeasy in San Francisco that I'm investing in. So I really, that's my favorite form of spending. It's investing in people and ideas and new concepts. Material objects just really have never been a thing for me.
So hey, talk about like your financial success, right? How has things changed in your life thanks to the increase in financial success? Like, have your friends, family, parents, have they looked at you different? Have they changed? Because for me personally, I had like a dozen aunts and cousins and first cousins and second cousins and third cousins that pop out of nowhere reaching out to me saying that they're my cousin. I'm like,
Well, so I'm Jewish, and Jews, we really don't ask money from each other. That's like something that's just we really don't do. So family, not really, but it actually, I mean, and getting back to friends and others, it's a lot different. But for me, I was a screw up my entire adolescence. Most of my life, I got kicked out of schools. I got arrested. I was a total delinquent. And so this was real vindication for me. I mean, when I dropped out of school, I mean, I never got a high school diploma. And then I dropped out of college a year before graduation. To me, this was, people thought I was crazy. They're like, oh, there goes Jeremy again doing some crazy shit. And nobody actually believed that like what I was doing would turn into anything real. Most people thought Bitcoin was a scam. Crypto was a scam. Nobody understood what Augur was. And so seeing this incredible growth in the past 2 years has served as the ultimate vindication for my outlandishness my whole life. But then, yeah, of course, everybody I told I was doing Bitcoin to, which includes every first date I went on in the past 5 years, are coming back to me in the past few months asking for crypto advice or just asking how I'm doing. And it's like, we had one bad first date. Why are you contacting me? But of course I know why. And so yeah, of course that sort of stuff changes. But I've never been a real evangelist when it comes to buying Bitcoin. I've always much more preferred to create like grassroots networks, like with Blockchain Education Network, educating through the magazine, and then really working with people that already believe in Bitcoin and blockchain technology to help them develop a greater understanding, whether it's large companies, academics, and government organizations and the like. But fortunately, I haven't spent the past 5 years telling everyone I know to buy Bitcoin, because I know people that have done that, and those people just have their phones blowing up all the time. I'm sure you've experienced.
Dude, we've been telling people for the last 4.5 years, and hey, I remember I had friends and colleagues who they would literally, no joke, man, they would literally get their phone and video me, right? And they go, hey, man, okay, go ahead and tell me about that Bitcoin shit again. I'm going to videotape this. I'm going to videotape this, and they would video it while I'm telling them, hey, man, you got to get into this. It's going to change the world, the clearing and settlement, this new form of currency, it's electronic cash and all of it, and then they would play it for me, and they go, you see this, man? You see how stupid you look? And I literally had colleagues that were trading, and they would tell me this. I even worked at this one place I worked at, and this is as crazy as it sounds, right? I remember in 2014, I offered everybody that was working on our team, right? This place that I was working at, I offered everybody that was working in our department that if they bought any Bitcoins, I don't care how many they bought, right? If they ever lose money on it and they want to get a refund, I'll buy it all back from them for the same price that they bought it for in 2014, which is around like 2, 3, 4. They were all less than $500. And I said, if you ever felt that I pointed you wrong, you just bring those Bitcoins to me, transfer them to me, and I'll give you your money back.
Yeah.
Now, who the hell does that? And there was like maybe like a dozen guys that I offered this to. And they all were taking pictures. They were videotaping me and telling me how stupid and crazy I was. And guess what now? Every last one of them has called me back and asked me how to get into Bitcoins. And I said, and I tell them, are you freaking stupid or what? I told you to get into Bitcoins at $200, $300. You don't want to get into it. And now you want to call me up at $2,000, $3,000. And now at $20,000, you want to learn how to buy a Bitcoin.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's when people ask me, like, how do you feel about making all this money? I'm like, I don't really care. But what I do really indulge in is the vindication. It's that feeling. It was like, yes, this is actually happening. It's becoming real. This technology is playing out and the way that we expected, or more crazily, probably not exactly how we expected, but it's becoming real, and that is the feeling that I indulge in so much more than anything related to the money. It's just seeing this technology become something that is inevitably going to affect this world, when it was purely speculative back when you and I were evangelizing it back in the day. I mean, it's been a tremendous development in the past 2 years.
Okay. Well, to wrap things up here, you know, if you guys are watching us have any questions for Jeremy, you know, just leave it in the chat box, and then I'll let Jeremy know what the questions are. And also state the city or the country that you're from too, or that you're asking. And make sure that you ask questions that will help you, you know, instead of trolling or asking random questions, right?
Yeah, no trading questions.
Yeah.
No buy and sells, like, not happening.
Yeah.
But I have to disclaim, I've only got a few minutes because my next meeting's here. But I'll take a few questions and answers.
Okay. And so while we're waiting for the questions to come in, Jeremy, hey, if somebody wants to follow you, where's the best place? Your Twitter handle right there?
Twitter. Some of my more long form thinking is on Medium. I often do op-eds for different magazines, but Twitter's where you can kind of see it all. Medium's more personal, so that's definitely the best medium to follow me on.
Okay, and then if somebody wants to contribute to your blockchain education project or your magazine, what would be the best place if they want to contribute to it?
They can, so they can go to blockchainedu.org for the nonprofit, and then for the magazine, just go to blockchainmagazine.com, and there they kind of sort material between the magazine website and from the print magazine as well. So those are the easy places to go. And if you want to sign up for the weekly newsletter for Distributed, it's distributed.com.
Okay, and just a couple of quick questions. What do you think about mining, and is it worth getting into?
Mining, total pass.
Okay.
If you're long on crypto, just you buy it and hold it. Do not mine.
Do you smoke weed?
You know, it just became recreational in California. I think it has tremendous beneficial effects. I have horrible scoliosis in my back. My back's actually killing me right now. So I use it medicinally. Okay,
what do you think about Zcash?
Zcash is interesting. I need to give it more consideration. The ZK snarks on Ethereum has been a very promising development that I think may make most privacy coins irrelevant. But I've had some second thinking about it. I think Zcash, Monero, Dash, all could be interesting, but I need to do more research.
Okay. They have this question: is Trezor better than Ledger? No, both of them are. Both of them have advantages and disadvantages, so neither one is better than the other.
I prefer Trezor just because of all the different crypto assets that they hold.
Okay.
But Trezor's a fantastic company as well.
Okay. Let me see. Which industries do you, in particular, does Jeremy think that blockchain will truly disrupt?
I don't think any there's any industry that won't, at the end of the day, be affected by blockchain technology, simply because blockchain technology represents a paradigm shift in how value is represented and transferred in the world of the internet. That being said, in the short term, I think real estate is going to be huge. I think every component of the real estate industry will be affected by blockchain technology. Healthcare in the medium to longer term, I've had multiple healthcare executives describe it as the holy grail of healthcare innovation. I think finance, very obviously. I think government and governance, which are two different things, are both going to be hugely affected in probably even in the short term. So, I mean, if you think about what value is, which is what blockchain technology enables the transfer of, it affects every business. It affects every line of work. And so it's only a matter of time that the blockchain technology will come and affect just about everything that we do. But the time horizon is varying depending on the industry. And I think the ones I outlined are definitely some of the most ripe for blockchain innovation.
Yeah. So last two questions here. One of them I'm going to answer for you. What's your thoughts on Cardano?
Charles Hoskinson is brilliant. I would like to see more technical experts in the industry affirm its merits. A lot of people are calling it semi-centralized. Dan Larimer of EOS, BitShares, and Steemit says that it takes it draws off of delegated proof of stake while adding features that he knows won't work. It's he said, she said at this point. Yeah. You know, I get very skeptical of any project that's worth billions of dollars months after launching. It's very hard to prove that sort of valuation. But smart team, smart founder. I don't know enough. I don't own any.
Okay, this last question, and then I'll let you go here, Jeremy. You know, Motor City Bitcoin Gal asked about your newest venture, Awesome Ventures, and I'm going to answer this question for her. You know, so in the U.S., there's laws and financial laws in the U.S. where if Jeremy is operating a hedge fund, there are certain questions that he can answer, and there's certain questions that he cannot answer unless he knows that you're an accredited investor. So I'm not going to put Jeremy on the spot in front of everyone in the live audience, and it's recorded, to answer any questions that could get him in trouble. If you want to learn more about Awesome Ventures, you're welcome to go search for Jeremy Gardner and read up on the site and all the information and the prospectus and everything there, or whatever information he has there. And then you can contact him privately, and then if you're interested, and then he can answer the questions for you. But other than that, I'm not going to ask him questions that are too many detailed questions about his fund and get him in trouble and put him on the spot, especially when our securities lawyer always tells us to be careful about discussing those things online. So that's the answer for you there. So
I appreciate you giving the answer I would have given.
Yeah. So I just want to say thanks for coming on and sharing your background, your experiences. You know, would love to have you back in the future. You know, any projects that you work on that you're able to share with the public. You know, respect what you're doing in all these years to improve the education process for the blockchain industry. And if there's anything that our channel can do or I can do to help with that, you know, let us know, reach out to us, and we'll bring you back on. All right?
My pleasure. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah. All right. Thanks. And have a great time there in San Francisco. And we'll see you in the future video. Okay, Jeremy? Thanks Absolutely. A lot, man. And if you guys like these types of videos where I bring on veterans of the cryptocurrency space to learn more about crypto investing, make sure you go to www.cryptocurrency.market/newsletter and subscribe to our newsletter. And I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next video. And this will conclude the broadcast, guys.